The Texas coastline, August 14, 1996. Summer heat clung to the air like a shroud, refusing to yield even as evening approached. The waves of the Gulf of Mexico lapped rhythmically against the shore, indifferent to what was about to unfold just yards away. At 217 Seabreeze Lane in Port Aransas, the Henderson family vacation home stood as a beacon of casual luxury against the darkening sky, its windows glowing with warmth and life. By midnight, all traces of the Henderson family would vanish without explanation. 4 people gone. No signs of struggle, all doors locked from the inside. The disappearance of the Henderson family would become one of the most perplexing cold cases in Texas criminal history, a mystery that would haunt investigators for nearly 3 decades. What happened inside that beach house on that humid summer night? Where did Thomas Henderson, his wife Elaine, and their 2 children, 16-year-old Abigail and 12-year-old Noah, go? And why would it take 27 years for the first real breakthrough to emerge? This is not a story with easy answers. It's a maze of dead ends, contradictions, and inexplicable evidence. But to understand how this case would eventually shock the nation in 2023, we need to return to where it began, on that stifling August night in 1996. Thomas Henderson was 45 years old in 1996, a successful petroleum engineer for Coastal Oil. Colleagues described him as methodical, brilliant with numbers, and unfailingly punctual. Thomas lived by the clock, said Vincent Delgado, who worked alongside him for 8 years. If he said a meeting was at 10 a.m., he'd be sitting there at 9:55, every time. Not 9:54, not 9:56, always 9:55. This precision extended to his family vacations, which were planned months in advance, with detailed itineraries shared with extended family members. The August trip to Port Aransas was an annual tradition, always scheduled for the same week each year. Elaine Henderson, 42, balanced her career as a high school chemistry teacher with family life. Former students remember her as demanding but fair, with a dry wit that could cut through teenage apathy. Mrs. Henderson didn't accept excuses, recalled Diane Winters, a student from the class of '95. But if you were struggling and genuinely trying, she'd stay after school as long as it took to help you understand. She expected excellence because she believed we were capable of it. Abigail Henderson had just finished her sophomore year of high school with a 4.0 GPA. She was described as quiet but confident, with aspirations of studying marine biology. Noah, the youngest Henderson, was known for his boundless energy and fascination with astronomy. He had packed his telescope for the beach trip, excited about the possibility of clear night skies away from city lights. By all accounts, the Hendersons were a close-knit family without obvious problems. Financial records showed stability. School and work records indicated no unusual stresses. Interviews with friends and family revealed no significant conflicts. The family seemed, on the surface, almost unremarkably normal. The beach house at 217 Seabreeze Lane had been in Thomas's family since the 1970s. A 2-story structure with large windows facing the Gulf, it featured 4 bedrooms, a spacious kitchen and living area, and a wraparound porch perfect for watching sunrises over the water. The property wasn't isolated. Neighboring houses stood within 50 yards on either side but offered enough privacy for a peaceful getaway. The Hendersons arrived at the beach house on Sunday, August 11, 1996, planning to stay until the following Saturday. Security camera footage from a gas station 5 miles from the property captured the family's blue Suburban pulling in at 3:42 p.m. The video shows Thomas filling the tank while Elaine went inside with the children to buy snacks. All 4 appear relaxed and cheerful in this last confirmed sighting of the family together. The first 3 days of their vacation passed without incident. The phone records show calls made from the beach house landline to Thomas's mother on Monday evening and to Elaine's sister on Tuesday afternoon. A neighbor, Judith Blackburn, reported seeing the family on the beach Tuesday morning. They had a colorful umbrella set up, she told police. The kids were building a sandcastle and the parents were reading books. Just a normal family enjoying vacation. On Wednesday, August 14th, the family's movements become more difficult to track. A receipt from Shoreline Grocery, 3 miles from the beach house, shows a purchase at 10:17 a.m. The items bread, lunch meat, chips, sunscreen, and a fishing magazine suggest an ordinary day ahead. The cashier who processed the transaction had no specific recollection of the family. At approximately 2:30 p.m., a postal carrier delivered mail to the beach house and reported seeing Elaine watering plants on the porch. She waved at me, seemed perfectly fine, he stated in his interview. Nothing unusual at all. At 4:12 p.m., Thomas used his credit card at Coastal Bait Tackle, purchasing fishing line and hooks. The store owner remembered Thomas mentioning plans to take Noah fishing off the pier that evening. Between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m., there are no verified sightings of any Henderson family members. What happened during these critical hours remains unknown. Did they go fishing as planned? Did they return to the beach house? Did someone else enter the property? The Henderson family owned a landline at the beach house, but Thomas was known to turn off his work cell phone during vacations. Elaine didn't own a cellular phone, and the children weren't allowed to have them. And this lack of constant connection, so foreign to our current digital age, created a vacuum of information about the family's final hours. What we do know is that at 8:23 p.m. Thomas called his brother William from the beach house landline. The call lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. William Henderson would later tell investigators that the conversation was unremarkable. Tommy just wanted to confirm dinner plans for the following week, after they got back home. He mentioned Noah caught a small redfish that day, but they threw it back. He sounded completely normal. That was it. This call represents the last known contact anyone had with the Henderson family. At 9:37 p.m., a neighbor 2 houses down reported hearing what might have been fireworks or possibly gunshots coming from the direction of the Henderson property. It wasn't loud, Karen Jennings told police, just 2 pops, like firecrackers, but muffled. I didn't think much of it at the time. People are always setting off fireworks on the beach in summer. No other neighbors reported hearing these sounds, and investigators were never able to determine their source or significance, if any, to the disappearance. The initial alarm was raised not by a dramatic discovery, but by the absence of one. Thomas Henderson failed to call his mother on Thursday morning, a ritual he maintained whenever the family was away. After 3 unanswered calls to the beach house, Gloria Henderson contacted William, asking if he'd heard from his brother. William called the Port Aransas Police Department at 1:14 p.m. on Thursday, August 15th, requesting a welfare check. Officer Peter Martinez arrived at 217 Seabreeze Lane at 1:49 p.m. What Officer Martinez found, or rather, didn't find, would become the foundation of one of America's most baffling missing persons cases. The beach house appeared undisturbed from the outside, and the family's blue Suburban was parked in the driveway. No windows were broken. Both the front and back doors were locked. After receiving no response to repeated knocking, and with growing concern based on the welfare check request, Officer Martinez contacted the property management company that maintained the Henderson beach house. A representative arrived with a key at 2:37 p.m. Upon entering the house, Officer Martinez found it in immaculate condition. There were no signs of struggle or forced entry. In the kitchen, 4 plates sat in the dish drainer, apparently washed and left to dry. A pot containing pasta remnants sat on the stove, cold to the touch. 4 glasses with traces of what appeared to be iced tea stood on the counter. The family's suitcases remained in their bedrooms, clothes neatly folded inside. Thomas and Elaine's wallets, containing credit cards and cash, were on their bedside table. Elaine's purse hung on a hook by the front door. All 4 family members' toothbrushes were in the bathroom. Nothing valuable appeared to be missing. The beds in all bedrooms were made, showing no evidence of having been slept in the night before. A book lay open on Elaine's nightstand, a bookmark placed on page 237. Abigail's journal sat on her desk, the last entry dated August 13th, describing a perfect day at the beach, and plans to watch for shooting stars the following night. Noah's telescope stood on the porch, pointed toward the night sky, apparently set up for stargazing. A notepad next to it contained his childish handwriting, logging times and coordinates of celestial observations up until approximately 9:40 p.m. on August 14th. But of the Henderson family themselves, there was no trace. Officer Martinez immediately called for backup, and within hours the quiet beach house became the center of an intensive investigation. The property was sealed off as a potential crime scene, though investigators were baffled by the lack of evidence suggesting any crime had actually occurred. It was like they had just stepped out for a moment, recalled Detective Samuel Reyes, who arrived at the scene that afternoon. Except their car was still there, and all their belongings were in place. People don't just vanish into thin air, especially not an entire family. But that's exactly what appeared to have happened. The subsequent investigation was thorough and multifaceted. Forensic teams examined every inch of the beach house. Cadaver dogs searched the property and surrounding areas. Divers explored the nearby waters. Helicopters scanned the coastline. Local hospitals and shelters were checked. Border crossings were notified. The Hendersons' financial records, phone records, and personal relationships were scrutinized. The forensic analysis of the beach house yielded frustratingly little. Fingerprints throughout the property matched only those of the Henderson family and cleaning staff. DNA testing, still in its relative infancy in 1996, revealed nothing unusual. No blood or other bodily fluids were detected using luminol and other techniques available at the time. Food in the refrigerator suggested the family had planned to continue their stay. A handwritten shopping list in Elaine's handwriting was magnetized to the refrigerator door, with items they apparently intended to purchase the following day. The family's Suburban contained beach toys, towels, and a cooler with melted ice. Thomas's fishing gear was found in the trunk, along with a camera containing a partially used roll of film. When developed, these final photos showed typical vacation scenes: the children building a sandcastle, Elaine reading on the porch, Thomas and Noah displaying a small fish. The last image on the roll, time-stamped 7:26 p.m. on August 14th, showed Abigail and Noah looking at something through the telescope on the porch. Their expressions revealed nothing unusual, just normal excitement as they observed the night sky. The investigation expanded to include interviews with everyone who had contact with the family during their vacation. The postal carrier, store clerks, neighbors, and passing tourists were questioned extensively. But no one reported anything suspicious or unusual about the Hendersons or their activities. One particularly puzzling aspect of the case was the state of the beach house's security. All doors and windows were locked from the inside. The only keys to the property belonged to Thomas Henderson and the management company, and Thomas's key was found inside the house on a hook by the door. The back door featured a deadbolt that required a key from either side, and this key was found in the lock on the inside of the door. It created an impossible scenario, explained Detective Reyes. If the family left willingly, how did they lock deadbolts from the inside? If they were removed by force, where was the evidence of struggle? And if they never left at all, where were they? As days turned to weeks, the investigation broadened. The FBI joined local authorities, bringing additional resources and expertise. Agents conducted background investigations into each family member, searching for hidden problems or connections that might explain their disappearance. Thomas Henderson's work at Coastal Oil came under scrutiny. As a senior petroleum engineer, he had access to valuable proprietary information. Could industrial espionage have played a role? Extensive investigation revealed no suspicious activities or contacts, though his colleagues unanimously described him as ethical and straightforward. Coastal Oil's security team found no evidence that Thomas had accessed or copied sensitive information before his disappearance. Elaine's life was similarly examined, but her fellow teachers and students were interviewed, revealing nothing beyond a dedicated educator looking forward to the new school year. Her medical records showed no concerning health issues. Her friends described her marriage as stable and loving. The children's lives were carefully reviewed. School records, teachers, friends, and extended family painted consistent pictures of Abigail and Noah as well-adjusted adolescents without significant problems. Abigail's diary, recovered from the beach house, contained normal teenage concerns about school, friends, and her future. Noah's belongings revealed a child fascinated by space and science, with no indications of distress. The Henderson family's financial situation showed no red flags. Their bank accounts remained untouched after their disappearance. Thomas's 401k and life insurance policies listed his wife and children as beneficiaries. Tax records showed no unusual deductions or unexplained income. Credit reports revealed no significant debt. The mortgage on their primary residence in Houston was being paid regularly, and they had no liens or judgments against them. As the investigation continued, authorities explored increasingly unlikely scenarios. Could the family have staged their own disappearance? The evidence argued strongly against this. Their passports remained in a lockbox at the beach house. No large withdrawals had been made from their accounts before the vacation. Their social security numbers showed no activity after August 14, 1996. Friends and family reported no conversations suggesting dissatisfaction with their lives or desires to escape. Could they have been victims of a murder-suicide? Extensive testing found no evidence of gunshot residue, blood, or other indications of violence. No weapons were missing from the beach house or the Hendersons' Houston home. Psychological evaluations based on interviews, writings, and past behavior suggested no tendencies towards self-harm in any family member. What about an environmental cause? The property was tested for gas leaks, carbon monoxide, and other potential environmental hazards. Nothing significant was found. Weather reports showed no unusual phenomena on the night of August 14th. No severe storms, no electrical anomalies, no reported meteoric activity. One theory involved the possibility of the family drowning during a late-night swim. And the telescope on the porch suggested they were outside observing the sky that evening. Could they have decided to take a moonlight swim and been caught in a rip current? Extensive searches of the Gulf found no bodies, however, and it seemed unlikely that all 4 family members would drown simultaneously without at least one of them making it back to shore or someone hearing calls for help. Additionally, no wet swimwear or towels were found in the house, suggesting they hadn't prepared for swimming. Another theory centered on possible abduction by unknown assailants. But this raised more questions than it answered. How did multiple people vanish without signs of struggle? How did the perpetrators lock doors from the inside after removing the family? And perhaps most puzzling, why would someone abduct an entire family but leave behind wallets, jewelry, and other valuables? As 1996 drew to a close with no resolution, the Henderson case began to recede from headlines. By early 1997, the active investigation had been downgraded to a cold case, though detectives continued to follow up on occasional tips and leads. The years passed. The Henderson family's primary residence in Houston remained empty, held in trust by William Henderson. The beach house was eventually sold in 2001, the proceeds going into the same trust. William maintained regular contact with investigators, calling on each anniversary of the disappearance to check for updates. In 2006, for the 10th anniversary of the disappearance, a Texas monthly feature renewed public interest in the case. The article explored the known facts and prevailing theories, but offered no new insights. A segment on unsolved mysteries later that year generated dozens of tips, all of which led nowhere. By 2016, the 20th anniversary, most of the original investigators had retired or moved on. The case files gathered dust in the Port Aransas Police Department archives, occasionally reviewed by new detectives hoping for a fresh perspective. A memorial bench was installed on the beach near the former Henderson property, bearing a simple inscription: Thomas, Elaine, Abigail, and Noah Henderson. Gone but not forgotten. August 14, 1996. And then, in February 2023, everything changed. The breakthrough came not from Port Aransas or even Texas, but from Flagstaff, Arizona, nearly 900 miles away. A routine inventory of evidence in an unrelated case led technician Sofia Ramirez to discover a sealed envelope that had been misfiled for decades. The envelope contained a roll of 35mm film with an evidence tag connecting it to the Henderson case. I honestly thought it was just a duplicate of the roll we'd already processed back in '96, recalled Detective James Weaver, who inherited the Henderson case in 2019. The original investigation was so thorough, it seemed impossible they'd missed an entire roll of film. But when developed using modern techniques, the film revealed images that had never before been seen, photographs that would reshape everything investigators thought they knew about what happened at 217 Seabreeze Lane on that August night 27 years earlier. The first few shots matched the known timeline, beach scenes from August 11th through 14th, similar to those found on the camera in the Suburban. But the final 3 images on the roll defied explanation. They appeared to have been taken inside the beach house, sometime after dark on August 14th, the night the family vanished. The first of these final photographs showed the kitchen of the beach house. A clock on the wall displayed the time as 10:17 p.m. Nothing seemed immediately unusual, though analysts would later identify subtle discrepancies when compared with crime scene photos taken the following day. The second photograph showed the beach house living room, apparently empty. But when enhanced using FBI technology, a partial reflection could be seen in a decorative mirror on the far wall. The reflection appeared to show a figure standing in the doorway to the kitchen, though the image was too blurry to identify specific features. It was the third and final photograph that would shock investigators and, eventually, the nation. The image showed the Henderson family's porch, with Noah's telescope visible in the foreground. Beyond it, on the beach, 4 distinct figures could be seen walking away from the house toward the water. The distance and darkness made identification difficult, but the height and general build of the figures were consistent with the Henderson family, 2 adults and 2 children. But what made the photograph truly extraordinary was what could be seen in the sky above them. When I first saw it, I thought it must be some kind of processing error or damage to the film, FBI image analyst Dr. Emily Thorne would later state. But after thorough examination, we can confirm that what's visible in that image is not a result of deterioration or manipulation of the photograph. But what exactly was captured in that final frame has become the subject of intense debate, speculation, and scientific inquiry. Some see it as the long-sought explanation for the Henderson family's disappearance, while others dismiss it as an elaborate hoax or a misinterpreted natural phenomenon. As news of the photograph's discovery spread through law enforcement channels in March 2023, the Henderson case was officially reopened. The FBI took the lead, bringing new resources and technology to bear on the 27-year-old mystery. The beach house at 217 Seabreeze Lane had changed hands multiple times since the Hendersons disappeared. The current owners, a retired couple from Dallas, granted investigators permission to conduct a new, thorough examination of the property using technologies that hadn't existed in 1996. The ground-penetrating radar surveyed beneath the house and surrounding property. Advanced spectrographic analysis tested for trace evidence that might have been missed by earlier methods. Soil and water samples were collected for analysis. The remaining Henderson personal effects, stored in evidence lockers for nearly 3 decades, were re-examined using modern forensic techniques. Parallel to these efforts, investigators tracked down and re-interviewed surviving witnesses from 1996. Many had died in the intervening years, but those still living found their memories tested as they tried to recall details of that long-ago summer. Memory is imperfect under the best circumstances, explained FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Rebecca Montgomery. After 27 years, we expect significant degradation and potential contamination of memories. But sometimes people remember small details they didn't realize were important at the time, details that take on new significance in light of fresh evidence. One such detail emerged from a follow-up interview with Karen Jennings, the neighbor who had reported hearing what might have been gunshots on the night of August 14th, 1996. Now in her 70s, Jennings recalled something she hadn't mentioned in her original statement. After I heard those pops, I went out on my deck to see if anyone was setting off fireworks, she told investigators in 2023. I didn't see any fireworks, but I remember the beach was lit up with this strange bluish light for just a few seconds. I thought maybe it was heat lightning, but there weren't any clouds. It was just this weird glow that came and went. At the time, Jennings hadn't connected this observation with the Henderson family's disappearance. But in light of what was visible in the newly discovered photograph, her account took on potentially crucial significance. As investigators pieced together the new evidence with the original case files, a timeline began to emerge that differed significantly from what had been assumed in 1996. The final hours of the Henderson family's known existence appeared to include events no one had previously suspected, events that might explain how four people could seemingly vanish from a locked house without a trace. By June 2023, the FBI was prepared to make a public statement about the reopened investigation. In a press conference that drew national media attention, Special Agent in Charge Gabriella Wilson revealed the existence of the newly discovered photographs and outlined the Bureau's current understanding of the case. Based on all available evidence, we now believe the Henderson family left their beach house voluntarily at approximately 10:20 p.m. on August 14, 1996, Wilson stated. They appear to have walked toward the Gulf of Mexico. What happened after that remains under investigation. Wilson declined to speculate on the nature of the unusual aerial phenomenon captured in the final photograph, saying only that multiple government agencies were analyzing the image and that all possible explanations were being considered. The press conference raised far more questions than it answered, and public fascination with the case exploded. The photograph itself was not released to the public, fueling intense speculation about what it might show. Social media buzzed with theories ranging from the scientific to the supernatural. Cable news programs devoted segments to the case, bringing in experts to debate possible explanations. Meanwhile, the investigation continued, expanding in directions that would have seemed absurd to the original detectives in 1996. The FBI consulted with NASA, NOAA, and various academic institutions. Military records were reviewed for evidence of exercises or classified activities in the Gulf of Mexico region on the night in question. Astronomical data from August 14, 1996, was re-examined for unusual phenomena. And deeper in the background, working with compartmentalized information and specialized expertise, a small team of government scientists and intelligence analysts pursued a theory so extraordinary that most would dismiss it as fantasy, a theory that, if proven, would forever alter humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. As summer 2023 progressed, the Henderson case captured the public imagination like few mysteries before it. Something about the scenario, a normal family vanishing from a locked house, leaving behind all possessions, that only to be seen walking toward the ocean beneath an unexplained light in the sky, resonated deeply with primal human fears and fascinations. What actually happened to Thomas, Elaine, Abigail, and Noah Henderson on that August night in 1996? Were they victims of an elaborate crime? Did they choose to walk into the Gulf of Mexico, never to return? Or did they encounter something beyond ordinary human experience, something captured in that final, tantalizing photograph? The truth would emerge gradually over the following months as the investigation reached its stunning conclusion. But the revelation would come at a cost, that challenging fundamental assumptions about reality itself and forcing a re-evaluation of dozens of similar cases previously dismissed as hoaxes or misidentifications. The impact would ripple through science, religion, and government, ultimately transforming humanity's view of both its past and its future. The Henderson family did not simply disappear on August 14, 1996. They became unwitting participants in something far larger, something that would remain hidden for 27 years before finally coming to light in a way that no one could have predicted and that few would be prepared to accept. July 2023. The sweltering Texas heat bore down on Port Aransas, not unlike that fateful night 27 years prior. But FBI Special Agent Gabriella Wilson stood on the beach, staring at the spot where 217 Seabreeze Lane once welcomed the Henderson family. The original structure had been demolished in 2017, replaced by a more modern beach house that bore little resemblance to the scene captured in the mysterious photographs. "It's strange," Wilson remarked to her colleague, Agent Thomas Powell. "Standing here, knowing what we know now, it's like looking through a window into another reality." The FBI investigation had taken an unprecedented turn following the discovery of the film roll in Flagstaff. What began as a cold case review had evolved into something that straddled multiple disciplines: forensic science, atmospheric research, theoretical physics, and a classified program within the Department of Defense that had monitored unusual phenomena since the 1950s. The third photograph, the one showing four figures walking toward the Gulf beneath an unexplained aerial light, had been subjected to exhaustive analysis. Initial theories about camera malfunctions, light leaks, or darkroom errors were systematically eliminated. The image was authentic, uncorrupted, and captured something that defied conventional explanation. Enhanced using advanced techniques, the photograph revealed details invisible to the original investigators. The four figures were indeed consistent with the Henderson family in height, build, and gait. They appeared to be walking calmly, without signs of duress or panic. The mysterious light above them cast long shadows on the sand, establishing it as a physical presence rather than a photographic artifact. What the public didn't yet know, what Wilson and a handful of officials were struggling to process, was the connection between this image and dozens of similar cases spanning decades. Cases that had been either dismissed or buried, often with deliberate misinformation to discredit witnesses. On July 15, 2023, Wilson received clearance to access files from a Department of Defense program codenamed Blue Book Extension. Though officially terminated in 1969, Project Blue Book had secretly continued under various classified designations, documenting unexplained aerial phenomena and, more disturbingly, cases of human disappearance associated with such sightings. The Henderson case isn't unique, explained Dr. Jonathan Kaplan, a civilian physicist who had consulted with the program since the early 2000s. What makes it extraordinary is the photographic evidence and the fact that it happened to an entire family simultaneously. But the pattern itself? We have seen it before. The pattern Kaplan referred to involves several consistent elements: sudden disappearances without signs of struggle, personal belongings left behind, locked doors or other enclosed spaces that should have prevented exit, and witness accounts of unusual atmospheric phenomena, lights, sounds, or electromagnetic disturbances in the vicinity. Between 1953 and 2022, Blue Book Extension had documented 189 cases sharing these characteristics. Of these, 157 involved single individuals, 28 involved pairs, typically couples or parent-child combinations. Only 4, including the Henderson case, involved larger family groups, and the majority of these disappearances remained unsolved. In a few cases, remains were discovered months or years later, often in locations impossible to reconcile with the circumstances of disappearance. In these instances, official causes of death were attributed to exposure, accident, or animal predation, despite forensic inconsistencies that were carefully omitted from public reports. What made the Henderson case unique was not just the photographic evidence, but what happened next. On August 1, 2023, nearly a month after the FBI press conference, William Henderson, Thomas's brother, received a phone call from a blocked number. The caller did not identify himself but claimed to have information about the Henderson family. Skeptical but desperate for answers after 27 years, William agreed to meet the caller at a public location in Houston. The man who approached William at a crowded coffee shop on August 3rd appeared to be in his 60s, with the weathered complexion of someone who had spent years outdoors. He introduced himself only as Joseph and explained that he had been a fisherman operating in the Gulf of Mexico in 1996. What he witnessed on the night of August 14th that year had haunted him ever since. "I was about 2 miles offshore," Joseph told William, his voice low and strained, "running an illegal night fishing operation, which is why I never came forward. Figured no one would believe me anyway." But, according to Joseph, at approximately 10:30 p.m., he observed an intense blue-white light hovering over the shoreline in the vicinity of Port Aransas. Initially assuming it was a Coast Guard helicopter, he killed his boat's lights to avoid detection. But as he watched through binoculars, he realized the light was like nothing he had ever seen before. "It wasn't a helicopter, wasn't a plane," he insisted. "It made no sound I could hear, even though it couldn't have been more than a quarter mile from me. Just this brilliant light hanging there, maybe 100 feet above the beach. Joseph claimed to have watched as 4 human figures walked from one of the beach houses toward the water's edge, and the light descended toward them, growing even brighter. What happened next strained credibility, but Joseph maintained it was exactly what he witnessed. The light touched the water maybe 20 yards ahead of those people, he said, his hands shaking as he recalled the scene. On the water, it parted, like there was a path opening up right into the gulf. Those 4 people, they just walked straight into it, right into that opening in the water. Then the light pulsed once, real bright, and everything the light, those people, and that path in the water, it was all just gone. William Henderson, understandably skeptical, pressed Joseph for details that might corroborate his account. The fisherman described the beach house, the telescope on the porch, that even the blue Suburban in the driveway, details that matched the Henderson property but could have been learned from news reports over the years. More compelling was Joseph's description of the 4 people: a tall man with slightly stooped posture, a woman with shoulder-length hair, a teenage girl, and a younger boy. The girl, he recalled, was carrying what looked like a camera. This detail had never been published and aligned with the discovery of the roll of film. William reported the encounter to the FBI. Agents attempted to locate Joseph based on William's description and the limited information he provided, but the man seemed to have vanished. His story, however, became a significant lead in the reopened investigation. Meanwhile, the scientific analysis of the beach property continued. In late July, ground-penetrating radar identified an anomaly beneath the sand approximately 50 yards from where the original house had stood, directly in line with where the 4 figures in the photograph appeared to be walking. On August 9, 2023, an FBI excavation team uncovered a perfectly circular formation of crystallized sand that's approximately 15 feet in diameter and buried 3 feet below the current beach surface. The formation could not be explained by any known geological process and contained trace elements not normally found in Gulf Coast sand, including isotopes of xenon and unexpected levels of iridium. Whatever created this formation generated temperatures exceeding 2,700 degrees Celsius, stated Dr. Eleanor Velez, a geologist consulting with the investigation. Yet it did so without burning or disturbing the surrounding sand. It's as if this circle of sand was instantly transformed at the molecular level while everything around it remained untouched. More shocking was what lay beneath this formation. As excavation continued, the team discovered a small object at the center of the circle, buried approximately 6 feet deep. The object, roughly the size of a quarter, was composed of an unknown metallic alloy that resisted standard analytical techniques. When tested with a mass spectrometer, the object's composition showed elements in configurations not found on the periodic table, molecular structures that, according to our understanding of physics, should not be stable under Earth's atmospheric conditions. Most puzzling of all, the object emitted a faint but measurable electromagnetic signature, despite having no apparent power source. This signature fluctuated in a non-random pattern, suggesting some form of encoded information or communication. The discovery was immediately classified at the highest levels. The beach was quietly cordoned off under the pretense of an environmental hazard, and a temporary structure was erected over the excavation site to shield it from satellite observation and public view. In Washington, D.C., a hastily assembled committee of scientific advisors, intelligence officials, and military personnel convened to assess the implications. Their discussions remained classified, but sources close to the committee described intense debate about public disclosure versus national security concerns. As these deliberations continued behind closed doors, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. On August 17, 2023, 3 days after the 27th anniversary of the Henderson disappearance, a package arrived at the FBI field office in Houston. It contained a USB drive and a handwritten note that read simply, "For William Henderson." The truth about his family. Forensic analysis of the package revealed no useful evidence regarding its sender. The USB drive contained a single video file approximately 3 minutes in length. The video showed an older man, gray-haired, thin, with deep lines etched into his face, sitting in a nondescript room. He identified himself as Thomas Henderson. The man in the video looked to be in his 70s, though Thomas Henderson would have been only 72 in 2023. He spoke directly to the camera, his voice steady but with an unusual cadence, as if English had become somewhat unfamiliar to him. "William, if you are watching this, I hope it brings you some peace," the man began. "What happened to us that night was, beyond explanation in terms you would understand. We didn't die. We weren't abducted in the way people might think. We made a choice when the opportunity presented itself." The Thomas-like figure went on to describe how the family had been observing stars through Noah's telescope when they witnessed an unusual light over the Gulf. Curious, they walked down to the beach for a better view. What they encountered there defied human comprehension. "They have been watching us, watching all of humanity for longer than our civilization has existed," he explained. "They don't interfere directly, but occasionally they extend invitations. Not everyone can see them. Not everyone who sees them accepts." According to this account, the Henderson family encountered what Thomas described as a gateway or threshold on the beach. Through it, they could see what appeared to be another world or dimension. They were given a choice: step through or return to their lives. "We discussed it as a family right there on the beach," the Thomas figure continued. "It was the hardest decision we have ever made. We knew what we were leaving behind you, our friends, our entire lives. But what we saw through that gateway, William, there are realities beyond anything humans have imagined. We couldn't turn away from that." The video included no concrete details about where the Hendersons had gone or what they had experienced since 1996. The man claiming to be Thomas explained that the differences between here and there made specific descriptions impossible in human language. "Time moves differently where we are," he said. "For us it's been, I don't know how to express it, not 27 years. Both longer and shorter somehow. Elaine sends her love. The children have grown in ways you wouldn't recognize, but they remember you." The video concluded with the man looking off camera briefly, then returning his gaze to the lens. "I can't explain why now, after all this time, we are able to send this message. From the physics involved, it's beyond me, even now. But they are allowing certain connections, certain communications. Things are changing, William. Humanity isn't alone, has never been alone. And soon. Everyone will understand that." The video ended abruptly, cutting to black without further explanation or farewell. Extensive analysis of the video by FBI technicians failed to determine whether the man was genuinely Thomas Henderson, aged naturally, or some form of sophisticated deepfake. Voice analysis showed similarities to Thomas's known speech patterns from family videos, but with significant anomalies that could not be attributed solely to age. When shown the video, William Henderson broke down. "That's Tommy," he insisted through tears. "I don't care what your machines say. That's my brother. The way he holds his head when he's thinking, the thing he does with his hands, that's him." The USB Discovery coincided with a series of unusual phenomena reported worldwide. Between August 18th and September 2nd, 2023, the monitoring stations across the globe detected anomalous electromagnetic pulses originating from points scattered across every continent. These pulses followed patterns similar to the emissions from the object found beneath the Port Aransas beach. More disturbingly, during this same period, 17 people in 12 different countries reported experiences strikingly similar to what the Henderson family apparently encountered in 1996. In each case, witnesses described seeing unusual lights and what appeared to be openings or thresholds. In ordinary environments, a park in Tokyo, a backyard in Buenos Aires, a subway tunnel in London. Unlike the Hendersons, none of these witnesses claimed to have stepped through these apparent gateways. All reported the phenomena disappearing within minutes, leaving no physical evidence beyond, in some cases, the circular patterns of affected materials similar to the crystallized sand formation in Port Aransas. By early September 2023, the classified committee in Washington faced a critical decision. The phenomena appeared to be accelerating, with reported sightings increasing exponentially. The object found in Port Aransas was not unique. Similar artifacts had been discovered at 3 of the 17 recent insights. Analysis of these objects revealed consistent properties, unknown alloy composition, persistent electromagnetic emissions, and apparent resistance to environmental degradation. One object, recovered from a site in Norway, was estimated to have been buried for at least 12,000 years based on surrounding archaeological context. Yet it remained identical in composition and activity to the recently discovered artifacts. The implications were staggering. Whatever these objects represented, whatever intelligence designed them, had apparently been present on Earth since before recorded human history. On September 12, 2023, after weeks of intense debate, President Alexander Mitchell was briefed on the full scope of the Henderson case and its connections to both historical and current phenomena. The president authorized a controlled disclosure process to begin with the release of the third photograph from the Henderson film roll. The photograph was released to the public on September 15, 2023, accompanied by a statement from FBI Director Samuel Ford acknowledging that the image showed an aerial phenomenon that remains unexplained, and 4 individuals consistent with the Henderson family approaching the Gulf of Mexico beneath this phenomenon. The release triggered exactly the media frenzy officials had anticipated. Within hours, the image had been shared billions of times across social media platforms. News networks ran continuous coverage, bringing in experts from various fields to analyze and speculate. Religious leaders offered interpretations ranging from divine intervention to demonic deception. What no one in the government anticipated was the cascade of similar photographs that began flooding the internet within days of the release. Hundreds of images, many dating back decades, showed comparable phenomena in locations worldwide. Some appeared to be hoaxes or misidentified conventional objects, but many withstood initial expert scrutiny. Most remarkable were 37 separate photographs from different times and locations, and showing human figures approaching or standing beneath lights similar to what the Henderson photograph captured. In several cases, these photos were connected to documented disappearances that had never been solved. By September 21, 2023, the situation had escalated beyond any government's ability to control the narrative. The president scheduled an unprecedented joint address with leaders from the United Kingdom, China, Russia, and India, representing the 5 nations whose scientific communities had conducted the most extensive research into the phenomena. In this historic broadcast, viewed by an estimated 4.2 billion people worldwide, President Mitchell confirmed what many had begun to suspect, that humanity had been experiencing contact with a non-human intelligence throughout its history. This contact appeared to be ongoing and accelerating. What we face is not a threat in the conventional sense, the president stated. Based on all available evidence, these entities have coexisted with humanity for millennia without hostile action. However, their purpose, nature, and origins remain largely unknown to us. What we do know is that they appear to be extending some form of invitation to certain individuals, for reasons we do not yet understand. The disclosure triggered widespread societal upheaval. The financial markets fluctuated wildly before stabilizing at new equilibria. Religious attendance surged across all faiths. Universities reported unprecedented interest in physics, astronomy, and comparative theology programs. For the Henderson family, or at least for their memory, the revelation brought a strange kind of closure. William Henderson, now the family's sole public representative, found himself thrust into an unexpected role as something between a celebrity and a religious figure. The people sought him out, believing proximity to the Henderson story somehow increased their chances of receiving an invitation like the one his brother's family apparently accepted. William maintained a dignified silence about the video allegedly sent by his brother, neither confirming nor denying its authenticity to the public. In private, however, he told close friends that he had made peace with what happened. If that really was Tommy in that video, then they are not gone, they are just somewhere else, he explained to a childhood friend in October 2023. And if it wasn't him, if this is all some elaborate hoax or something even weirder, then I still have the memory of who they were before they disappeared. Either way, they are still with me. The scientific investigation continued at an accelerated pace. By November 2023, a multinational research initiative had been established to study the objects, the electromagnetic phenomena, and the apparent thresholds or gateways described by witnesses. The Port Aransas site became the primary research location, with a permanent facility constructed around the excavation area. On December 3, 2023, this facility recorded its first major breakthrough. The object recovered from beneath the beach began emitting a significantly stronger electromagnetic signature, pulsing in a complex but recognizable pattern. Similar pulses were detected from other artifacts around the world, creating what researchers described as a network or conversation. Using advanced quantum computing algorithms, scientists began the painstaking process of deciphering these emissions. By February 2024, they had established what appeared to be basic parameters of communication, not language in the human sense, but structured information exchange. The first intentional response was transmitted on February 17, 2024, using a specially designed quantum emitter that mimicked the artifact's emissions. The response was simple, a mathematical sequence indicating recognition and receptivity. What followed over the next 6 months has been described as the most profound scientific advancement in human history. Through increasingly complex exchanges, researchers established a form of communication with whatever intelligence lay behind the artifacts. And the full content of these communications remains classified, but authorized releases confirm several key revelations. The intelligence, or intelligences, behind the phenomena exists in what can only be described as a parallel reality or dimension adjacent to our own, with occasional points of intersection. But these intersections have occurred throughout human history, accounting for many religious visions, unexplained disappearances, and folklore about people being taken by supernatural forces. The intelligence does not abduct humans in the traditional sense of the word. Rather, it extends what might be called invitations or opportunities to experience existence beyond conventional human reality. Those who accept these invitations, like the Henderson family apparently did, make a conscious choice. They are not forced or coerced. Time operates differently in this other reality, explaining why the Thomas-like figure in the video appeared both older than expected in some ways and younger in others. The increasing frequency of phenomena in 2023 represented the beginning of a new phase in the relationship between humanity and this other intelligence, a phase of more open communication and understanding. By August 14, 2024, the 28th anniversary of the Henderson disappearance, the multinational research team had advanced to direct their real-time communication with the intelligence. The exact nature of this communication has not been disclosed to the public, but its impact on global society has been profound. Religious institutions have begun integrating these revelations into their theological frameworks, with varying degrees of acceptance. Scientific paradigms have undergone radical revision. Geopolitical tensions have receded as nations confront the reality that humanity's divisions seem petty in the context of a vastly larger cosmic reality. For William Henderson, now 74 and in declining health, the anniversary brought an unexpected development. On the morning of August 14, 2024, he awoke to find a small object on his bedside table, an object identical in appearance to those recovered from the Port Aransas beach and other sites worldwide. How it arrived there remains unexplained. William's home had state-of-the-art security systems, all of which showed no evidence of intrusion. Yet the object was undeniably present, and when tested, emitted the same electromagnetic signature as the others. Unlike the previous artifacts, however, this one included what appeared to be an embedded image visible under certain light frequencies. The image showed Thomas, Elaine, Abigail, and Noah Henderson not as they were in 1996, but as they apparently are now, somewhere beyond conventional human reality. The family appears to be standing in an environment that defies normal description, neither indoor nor outdoor, with what might be interpreted as architecture or landscape or something between the two. They are smiling. Thomas has his arm around Elaine's shoulders. Abigail and Noah, now clearly adults, stand beside them. All four appear healthy and at peace, though changed in subtle ways that xenobiologists and physicists continue to debate. A small detail, almost overlooked in initial analyses, appears in the lower corner of the image what seems to be a date written in standard Earth calendar notation, August 14th, 2025. 1 year in the future from when the object appeared in William's home. 1 year from now. What this date signifies remains unknown as of this writing in September 2024. That some interpret it as an invitation for William to join his family. Others see it as a prediction of some larger event. Government officials refuse to speculate publicly, while privately preparing contingency plans for various possibilities. William Henderson himself has said only this: after 28 years of wondering, I finally know they are alive, in some sense of the word. Whether I see them again in this life or whatever comes after, that knowledge is enough. The Henderson family vanished from a locked beach house in Port Aransas, Texas on August 14, 1996. For 27 years, their disappearance remained one of America's most baffling mysteries. The discovery of a single photograph in 2023 cracked open not just their case, but humanity's understanding of its place in a much larger reality. As August 14, 2025 approaches, the world watches and waits. Whatever happens on that date, whether it affects only William Henderson or all of humanity, it will be the next chapter in a story that began with 4 people walking toward the Gulf of Mexico beneath an unexplained light in the night sky. A story that, in its unfolding, has forever changed what it means to be human in a universe far stranger and more wondrous than we ever imagined.